Hello and welcome. What the fuck? We'll just restart that. Blip, 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 blip. Here we go. Hello and welcome to Three's a Crime, a true crime podcast. I'm Tori.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Lindsey.
And that's our intro.
Here we are professional podcasters.
We're podcasters, bitches.
I need to get Pebbles a DNA test, but I don't think I need it because it turns out she's 100% that bitch.
100% that bitch.
You don't need a DNA test. Bubbles.
She really is.
You are 100% that bitch.
Yeah.
You're a good girl. Remember when you were even more of a little pregnant sausage?
Oh my god, yeah, she was.
She was the tubbiest.
She was a little tub.
Her little belly would like rub against the fucking grass.
Her little
when she
legs
went
are the
outside.
cutest.
She has very tight,
I
and like
love
if you
it.
touch her feet, they're really small. Like they belong.
Yeah.
I think
She's
Kalahari
so
has
big.
bigger feet.
Kalahari
Tired.
does have big feet, but she has the same freckle toes. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Joanna Yeates. And again, this is not any relation to serial killer Yeates.
We're
Um,
in Britain.
Yes, we're
Love-
going.
You sound like you're from London.
Oh God! If any of my British friends, Ellie, I'm looking at you. Listen to that. That was not me.
I'm so sorry.
That was not me. That was them. So actually, and Ellie, she listens to us. She was actually my boss when I was in England. I worked in like a stationery
Oh.
store, and yeah, and she
Thanks
was my
for
boss.
listening.
And oh my
Yeah.
God, we
You're a patron. Why aren't you giving us money?
this poor.
I'm sorry.
She'd have to send us pounds. This poor woman heard me like I said. There were so many like faux pas, like different word things. Like there was one day that I had, and so I'm going to talk about this, but I lived right off of Park Street in Bristol, in the United Kingdom, and it's when you're standing at the bottom of it, the incline doesn't look bad, but it's like. It's brutal. Like the year that I was there, just from walking up and down that hill, lost like 20, 25 pounds.
Your fucking calves were probably
Oh my God.
steel
It is insane.
mailman calves.
And I mean, it just kind of goes up. And,
Male
and for
person.
us to like where my buildings were on campus, you had to walk up this huge hill and then up another like
oh my
super
God,
steep hill.
no.
Yeah.
sounds
it was
terrible.
It was crazy.
Did you roll down on the way home?
You know
Instead of
what?
just-
I only fell once, and that was on New Year's. And I
Well,
was with my Japanese flatmate, and I was wasted. And I was in these freaking cowboy boots that I had bought, and they were brand new, so they were like super
Ooh,
slick.
yeah.
And it's New Year's Eve; it's
Oh my
winter,
God, yeah.
and I fell down. And my Japanese roommate Shen, who I love, he had actually come over and done like a 2-week English course before classes started.
Oh.
And he was living with a house full of Italians. So his like English accent was like Italian, but they did it in Scotland. So he would say
Oh my
things
God.
like, there's one day he was like, "Oh, I have to go on a diet. My trousers are too tight." I was like, "You're what?" He's like, "My trousers."
That's adorable.
It was, yeah, he
My
was adorable.
trousers.
But anyway, so I fall down, and poor Shun, trousers,
Trousers.
is standing over me, going, "Please, like, get up. I have to pee." And every time he would go to like help me up, my slick shoes would just shoot out from under me, and I would fall down again. Oh,
my
poor
God.
Shun. Anyway, okay. So, yes, so this takes place in Bristol, England. I lived there for a year. I absolutely loved it. I love England. But Ellie, when she was my boss, so there are words that we say differently.
Yes.
So I'm going to do some of that. Like I'm going to call her apartment her flat because that's what they call it. And they make fun of you when you say your English, your American words
As
when
they
you're
should,
there.
honestly.
As they should, yeah. So I'll say things like boot of the car instead of trunk of the car. But when I had a lot of faux pas. And so in England, pants are underwear.
Pantaloons. I'm
This
just
is
kidding.
just pants. Your pants, those are, or your knickers.
Oh, I thought they were
It's your
trousers. I thought they called them
underwear.
trousers. Or does it?
No, trousers are trousers. Trousers are like pants.
Or like work pants, kind
Well,
of?
no, trousers are just pants.
Okay, pants.
So you're right. But
Okay.
your underwear, that is what they call pants.
Okay, what do we call the underwear?
Like pants. Pants are knickers. Am I not understanding
Knickers!
the
I get
question?
it! I get it! I'm so confused!
Am I telling it wrong?
You literally said underwear is called pants. And she goes, so what is underwear called? And you go, pants. That was...
I honestly just kept thinking about trousers.
Yeah, so trousers. Okay. British.
I get it now.
No, British
Exactly.
trousers. British trousers are American pants.
Okay.
American pants are British underwear.
Okay.
Okay. But this will explain why after walking up that extremely steep hill in pouring rain, and I walk into my boss and I say, my pants are all wet.
Oh, that's not great. I see the problem.
I'm like, hey, I literally went to my boss and was like, hey, I creamed my pants. on the way to work.
Gross.
And she like
Did
she
just
looked
stare
at me.
you and
She did, and I, it took her because at first she really gave me like I cannot believe you just said that to me. And then it kind of I watched her brain translate what I was saying, and then the realization, and then the oh honey look that she gave me, and then explained to me quite calmly and nicely how that's not really an appropriate thing to say to your boss. Oh, and at another point, I had 2 drinks, and I said I was double fisting. Not something that you want to say over there.
Did you ever watch that pants commercial about shipping your pants? And it said, I just shit my pants. It's like, you know what I love to do? Shit my pants. I don't want to buy them. I want to ship them. And it was like a pants commercial. That's all I have.
Oh, another thing is you should not say fanny pack.
yes,
Because
I know
fanny
that.
does not mean like bum. It means like the big V.
Vagina.
That's the one.
Did you watch Scrubs? Bajingo.
I did.
Oh my god, I did watch Scrubs, and I don't remember that. I did
Elliot
just
calls it a bajingo because she
'Cause she
can't say
can't say,
vagina
yeah.
even though she's a doctor.
Yeah.
Isn't it a bajingo? Isn't that what she calls it?
Yeah. It's like a whole episode where she's trying to like say it and
on Frank and
Grace and Frankie.
Grace and Frankie, yes. At one point, the son Bud calls it. He's like, "Can we all stop talking about my mom's vagoo?" And now vagoo is like that's my favorite term. Okay, so today we're talking about Joanna Yeates. I realized as I kind of skimmed over this the other day that I go back and forth between referring to her as Jo and Joanna. I think she went by Jo, but I will be using both of those names. So Joanna Claire Yeates was born on April 19th, 1985 to David and Teresa Yeates in Hampshire, England. She studied for her A-levels at Peter Simmons College and graduated with a degree in landscape architecture from Riddle College. And in case you've ever heard A-levels and you don't know what that means, it literally means advanced levels. And I guess in 1951, this new way of doing, so the A-levels, it's a subject-based qualification, almost like picking a major.
okay,
Right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And so rather than have them tested in all of these different ranges, then they're just doing the one.
okay.
And the point of it was to replace high school certificates.
Okay.
And you have to have them usually to get into university. So
Okay. Because I know university is high school.
It's college, right?
No, it's college. But they see
Oh.
they again, there's some weird terminology things where like Peter Simmons College is, I believe, an undergraduate school.
The British shows I've watched,
Yeah.
I've tried to.
Yeah, so college
Put
is like
stuff
high
in.
school, and then I think university is university.
Okay.
University is like college. And it's really hard. Like, private school there is public school. Public school is actually private school.
Oh,
Why can't you
wow.
just speak American?
And everything is metric. Try making a first Thanksgiving dinner for your flatmates
No.
and your friends, and you're trying to do and that's how you end up with a 16-pound turkey and 2 hams, the biggest enormous thing of potatoes. The one thing I gave Sophie to do was make the mashed potatoes, and it was like this huge thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but they got to have Thanksgiving that year.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No Thanksgiving in England.
Speak American. For the record, I know that it's English. Just want to be clear.
Yes, that was sarcastic.
Speak American.
Joe then received a postgraduate diploma in landscape architecture from the University of Gloucestershire, which I actually applied to them for like a PhD scholarship or something. I did not get it.
I was gonna say, and you did not, I think.
I did not get it. If I did, I probably wouldn't be here doing this podcast. I'd still be living there. Anyway, in December of 2008, Joe met 25-year-old architect Greg Reardon, and they began dating. In 2009, the company they worked for moved to Bristol, and so they decided that not only were they both going to move for their jobs, they were going to move in together.
Okay.
So it was like the first time they were living together. In October of 2010, Joe and Greg moved into a new flat, which was a flat in like a large house that had been converted into multiple flats. So by December of 2018, they'd only lived there about 2 months.
Okay.
On December 17th, Joe had spent the evening with her coworkers at the Bristol Ram on Park Street, so the street I was telling you about. And just kind of as a sidebar, I lived on St. George's Road, and St. George's Road met up with Park Street. And
Okay.
this Bristol Ram was, because I looked it up because I'm like, I do not remember that place. And it was 4 minutes from my flat. And I'm like, if there had been a bar or pub 4 minutes from my door,
Yeah.
I feel like I would remember it. So if we have any Bristol listeners, or if anybody's been to Bristol and knows, because I could not find when the Bristol Ram was like established.
Okay.
It is not open anymore. I think they were a COVID casualty, but
Mm.
Sucks.
if anybody knows, because I'm going to be really annoyed if I lived 4 minutes from this
Yeah.
place and never knew it was
That's
there.
sad.
So anyway, this was December 17th. Joe was spending the evening with her coworkers at the Bristol Ram on Park Street. She had told her colleagues that she wasn't looking forward to go home because it was the first time since moving into that flat that Greg was going to be gone. He was going to Sheffield for the weekend to visit his parents. And I don't know why she wasn't going, but, well, she told her friends that she had made plans to do some baking because they were having like a Christmas party like within that next week. I think her mom mentions that she was planning to make mince pies and that she was going to get some Christmas shopping done. Joanna left the pub a little after 8 o'clock and began her 30-minute walk home.
Oh my God.
So she starts walking home, and she's captured on CCTV at 8:10, leaving a Waitrose supermarket. She didn't buy anything there. At 8:30, she called her best friend and made plans for them to meet up on Christmas Eve. She then stopped at an off-license, which is like basically a liquor store here.
Mm-hmm.
She bought 2 small bottles of cider. And then the last known footage of her was buying a pizza from a Tesco Express supermarket at 8:40. So she left the bar around 8:10. She's at the supermarket, and then she stops. She doesn't buy anything. She goes to the liquor store, buys a couple bottles of cider, goes to like a little tiny, Tesco, which is a grocery store again, a Tesco Express, buys like a frozen pizza, and then she's going home.
Why'd she go to so many different places?
I think she just, she was just on her way home. She'd been having drinks with her colleagues. And there are times like when I leave, like from getting drinks, and I'm like, not done drinking,
Yeah.
you know, and like so
Yeah.
you pick
Right,
something
right,
up on
right.
your way home.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you
There's
know,
nothing better than having like
Right.
a bottle of wine in your
Yeah.
pajamas in your own house. You can
Yeah, well, the
shit there. You can do whatever.
yeah, no,
wash your
exactly.
face.
She was just like, I'm going to pick up a pizza
Okay.
and a couple ciders and I'm going to eat and drink it when I get home. On December 19th, so now this is 2 days later, at approximately 8 p.m., Greg returned home from his weekend visit to Sheffield to an empty apartment. He had tried getting a hold of Jo all weekend,
It's
but
called
he
a
hadn't
flat.
reached her.
In England, it's called a flat, not an apartment.
I think I started this, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to write this way. So yes, he returned back to an empty flat.
Don't
He-
offend me, okay?
He had
getting
tried getting a hold of Jo a few times, and I think, and I couldn't find it again. I think he was texting her, and he just wasn't getting replies, and like that was not common, but it wasn't uncommon. Like he knew that she was
alarming.
going to be getting ready for the party and doing Christmas shopping, and
Sounds
so
like Michael and I would like have that.
yeah,
Like,
like
Yeah.
he just
Yeah.
you know figured she was
how long was he gone?
busy. Like a day and a half, 2 days. Like
Like a
he had
weekend
left
or
on a
something.
Friday
Okay.
and then he got back late on a Sunday. So
Okay.
2 days.
Got it.
But he wasn't like, he was kind of like, well, this is weird, but he wasn't like, oh my God, where
Freaking out
is
whenever
Jo?
she is,
Yeah.
right?
He decided to wait for a little while, but while he was waiting, he thought, oh, I'll just call her again. So he calls her and he hears her phone ringing from inside the flat, goes and looks, and then he finds that her phone is like in her jacket. So and this is winter,
Oh,
and it's
no.
December. The phone is in the jacket, her keys are there, her purse is there. And then, the cat comes out from wherever the cat's been. And it looks like the cat hasn't been fed in a couple days. And he's just like, okay, like,
He's like, what the fuck?
What's going? So by 12:30, when she wasn't home, Greg
12:30,
phoned.
like, in the morning?
Yeah.
It's
12:30 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah. So when she still wasn't home, he phoned the police and her parents to report her missing. And then Greg, along with Jo's friends, also set up a website, and they were really trying to use social media to kind of connect and promote that Jo was not around.
Mm-hmm.
On December 21st of 2010, Jo's parents and Greg make a public appeal for her safe return. And then they do another appeal on December 23rd during a live broadcast that was broadcast out by Sky News.
So close to Christmas.
And BBC News. Yeah. During the interview, Jo's father commented that like he thought she had been abducted from her home. And, they were hopeful. Like I watched several of the pleas beforehand and then kind of after what we're going to get to. They break your heart. But they were hopeful that she was still alive, but his biggest fear was that like if she was dead, that they weren't going to know where her body was, and like that was just his biggest fear.
Which is like what everybody says is worse than like if you, because then your mind
not knowing.
Your mind is a scary fucking place.
Yeah,
the stories that it makes
right.
up. Hashtag anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag mental health.
So investigators at this point, they search her apartment. They found no evidence of a forced entry or like a struggle. Both bottles of cider were still in the flat. One was partially consumed. The other was unopened. They found the receipt for the pizza in the living room. However, they found no evidence of the pizza or its packaging. And to this day, like they've never found the pizza or the packaging or anything.
Fuck?
Yeah, like it just
Pizzagate.
Pizzagate. Did she just throw it at the person like a
And I mean, it was crazy because in one of the public appeals, like the detectives literally got the pizza that she bought and like showed it.
Oh my God.
Like this is is what she bought, the tomato basil, like the margarita pizza. If you find this packaging or what I mean, they were really just like
pulling it. They were grasping at straws. Anything. And she's just gone.
She's just gone. There's no
forced entry.
They found no forced entry or a struggle. The fact that one of the ciders was open, investigators surmised that she had in fact made it home. Then if there's no forced entry, then she would have had to have let that person in. Who would she have let into the apartment, especially when her boyfriend was out of town? Like,
when you say bottle of cider, do you mean like a wine bottle of cider or like a beer bottle of cider?
Like because in England, cider, like the cider craze has only hit the U.S. in the last couple of years. It would be a bottle like this.
It's like personal size.
Yeah,
She wouldn't
personal
have
size.
two. Okay.
No, not like
Because
the
I was
big
thinking,
bottles of
yeah, if
cider
you had
that we
two
buy
giant
here.
bottles of like champagne, you would probably assume she probably has somebody there.
No, and the other thing that's really funny is you could actually over there buy like 2 liters of cider.
That sounds
Like
great.
you would buy
That's
a root
amazing.
beer.
Love
Yeah,
that.
we used to get
Brendan
we used
would
to get
drink
some
that.
really really
Get
cheap
current.
really cheap shit at Asda, which is a place we're going to talk about in a little bit. But Asda is, I believe it's actually owned by Walmart, but it's like Walmart there.
Okay.
I think that this is a good time for us to stop and take a little break for this ad.
Boopity bop bop.
Beep bitty beep. Wait, what'd you? Beep bitty boop boop.
Boppity beep bop bop dee. That's just
Skip,
scat
skittle-doo.
man.
Scat
man.
Can we have a sticker that says that? That's just scat, man.
That's just scat, man.
Write that down. That's
That's
scat,
just
man.
scat, man.
Oh my
Did you see
god. Bang sponsor. Thanks.
Bang. If you sponsor us, Lindsey will drink a bang every episode.
She already drinks
does.
a bang every
I do drink
episode.
bang,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
Shh, don't
Gives
tell
me
them
powers.
that.
Oh shit. Oh fuck you.
For a second, I thought you had taken your pants off. I was like, what is happening
I'm just
under
like
that blanket?
chilling.
Emily's got little shirts on.
She does.
You're cute.
Okay. So,
Thanks, Amazon sponsor.
all right. So, just as a reminder of where we were, investigators have the theory that Joanna must have known who was
Because
at
there was
the
no
door
forced
because
entry.
she must have opened
She
it.
let him in. There was nothing obviously wrong.
No signs.
Like
of-
there wasn't shit knocked around or anything.
No.
Okay.
Not that
Got it.
the police were noticing. So they were looking, the police were interested in other people that were living within this shared home, apartments, whatever. Greg, as the boyfriend, was looked at, of course. And they searched his computer, which they said was standard procedure, but he had a rock solid alibi because he was with his parents in a completely different city when it happened. And so he was quickly dismissed as a suspect and treated, as as an extended victim. A woman who was at a party near the home stated that she had thought around 9:00 she heard 2 screams, but it was a party and people were having party. This is like, the week and a half before Christmas. So she didn't really think too much of it. And then there was a neighbor who lived in a house that was like behind their house. And he thought he heard a woman scream, "Help me," but he couldn't remember what night it happened, when it happened.
What time, right?
If
Yeah.
it really happened.
So
Was it just one
police-
witness?
Right.
No one else heard that?
No one else heard that. So
Eyewitness statements are not always.
right. They're not always
Yeah.
reliable.
Sad.
So police start talking with the neighbors, and so they start first with the immediate neighbor across the hall, and their names were Vincent Tabak, who was a Dutch engineer, and his girlfriend, whose name was Tanya Morrison, and she was an analyst with Dyson.
Oh.
So I mean, these are all like highly educated people,
Yeah.
and they're living in Clifton, which is like part of Bristol, but it's like, it's the South Hill. It's the bougie part.
Okay.
It's the bougie part of Bristol. So again, they went across the hall and they're talking to Vincent Tabak and Tanya Morrison. Joe and Greg lived in flat 1 and they lived in flat 2. The couple had been together for 3 years. They were planning to get married. Tanya had been at a holiday party with her colleagues, and Vincent was like, "I was home all night until I went to pick her up about 2:00.
Sounds like me with every party ever. I'll
Right?
just stay home and I'll pick you up
I'll
later.
pick you up
Yep.
too. They both told police they hadn't seen or heard anything. Vincent had told police that he didn't really know Joanne or Greg. Like, they had only moved in October. So like, yeah, we've seen each other, but like,
Yeah. Besties.
So again, they had only moved in October, and he had been in the U.S. for work during November. So he hadn't really had a lot of contact. Vincent and Tanya were then dismissed as suspects.
Goodbye.
On Christmas Day of 2010, a fully clothed body, only a sock was missing.
Christmas Day?
Christmas Day
Fuck, man.
A fully clothed body was found laying on its side, partially covered with snow, and it was found by a couple walking their dog along Longwood Lane, which is about 3 miles from Joe's flat. The other thing, and we will get to this later, but the other thing that was odd was that she was wearing like a pink sweater, and it was like pushed up. So like
Was
her
she
bra was out.
exposed? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think she like,
But like
he hadn't taken it off, but it was exposing her bra.
Right. Okay.
And then she was laid like kind of curled on her side. Unfortunately, the police have been correct. This was not a missing persons case. This was now a murder. And the body they were really quick in identifying her. Because of the heavy snow and cold temperatures, Joanna's body was completely frozen. The postmortem began on December 26th, but they couldn't complete an autopsy until the body had like completely thawed.
Defrosted.
Which
I
don't know why, but that really was
makes me think of the
like mummies or
autopsy photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fucking creepy.
Yes, Dyatlov.
Yeah.
Initially, the police wondered if she had died from hypothermia because in just looking at her body kind of frozen, they didn't see any visible injuries.
Both. I mean,
yeah, they didn't see any visible injuries. And, was it like, was she drunk? Did she wander off and just like lay down in the snow to take a nap?
Yeah.
But, however, on December 28th, investigators advised that this was a homicide and that Joanna had died from manual strangulation several days before being found. So she had been out there for a while. Blessedly, they did not find any indication of sexual assault, even with her shirt pushed up that way. They were able to confirm that Joanne had not eaten the pizza that she had purchased that night. So, where the fuck did that pizza go?
What the fuck? We're on the hunt for a missing pizza.
We gotta find this pizza.
And it's weird. It's so bizarre to me that that's like this weird kind of crucial.
But if it was anything else, it could be like a necklace, and we'd be like, "Oh, there's a necklace missing."
Yeah,
right.
It's only the fact that it's a pizza that it's weird.
It was the last thing she was seen buying, right?
Yeah.
It was the last thing. Yeah, and that was the last time she was captured.
Like, where the fuck did it go? Did they just like take it home after they fucking killed her? And
who? Yeah,
had the pizza.
This is for later.
Yeah. Well, all that murdering sure did make me hungry.
Speak American.
Choking on
all that murdering
for a second.
Sure did make me hungry.
So this is a part that really stuck with me, and I sort of mentioned this in our kind of last Shooting the Shit show about, Joanna was a beautiful, young, white, upper class woman.
Yeah.
And with like advanced degrees. And just, it was weird researching this story along with watching the Sam Little documentary.
Oh my God.
Where it's so, like, just so different. Anyway, the investigation into Joe's murder was one of the largest ever conducted in Bristol.
Wow.
The police named the investigation Operation Braid. I don't know why.
Like braid, like A-I-D?
Like, yeah.
Hair. Okay.
Yeah. The team, this Operation Braid, comprised 80 detectives and civilian staff, led by Detective Chief Inspector Phil Jones, who urged the public to come forward with any information. They were... I'm actually kind of surprised she knows who Inspector Gadget is, but they did reboot him in the 90s.
That is the one
in the late 90s.
Yeah, that's the one no, not late. My childhood, 80s is what I'm talking about.
Right. Okay. Detective Chief Inspector Phil Jones, who urged the public to come forward with any information. They were particularly interested in any potential witnesses that may have been in or around the Longwood Lane area between Joe's disappearance and her body being found. He also mentioned that the police wanted to speak to the driver of a light-colored 4x4 vehicle. They actually purchased and showed the exact pizza, I mentioned this earlier, that she bought the night she disappeared. Like, I really do give the police in this case props for really not letting any stone unturned.
Yeah. I mean, they had 80 fucking
80 people on this like task force.
That's insane to me.
And I mean, but would you have had that if a sex worker had disappeared or her body had been found on Christmas Day?
Regular people don't get that here.
Right, right. As there hadn't been any forced entry into the flat, police summarized that Joe must have let her attacker in. They turned their attention to the landlord, Christopher Jeffries.
Oh,
Jeffries was a retired teacher who had never married, lived alone. He didn't have a TV. He preferred to read.
Oh,
Like he had been like an English.
Too good for
English. Yeah,
just kidding.
But also as a landlord, he had a copy of the keys to all the flats.
Ew.
If you listen to the Morbid podcast, they will tell you to put a fucking deadbolt on your door that your landlord does not have the key to. I don't give a fuck.
Police suspected that it was possible that Jeffries had let himself in. Maybe that's why they didn't he broke in and then waited for her to come home.
Yeah.
On December 30th, shortly after 7 p.m., they arrested Jeffries on suspicion of murder and brought him in for questioning while his flat was searched. They applied for several extensions, which they were granted, to hold Jeffries for up to 96 hours for questioning.
Wow.
And that's what this guy said, is he was like, it was so weird. They kept saying these things to me to the point that I was questioning my own reality and my memory. And in the United States, the police are allowed to legally lie to you. They can tell you that they have all kinds of evidence against you, etc. And they had done a big study a few years ago in England where they looked at these kinds of practices, and really all it was doing was eliciting false confessions. So they're not allowed to do that in England.
They have much better
anymore.
laws.
Okay, so Christopher Jeffries was arrested December 30th. Even though they had applied for that 96 hours, they did end up releasing him after 2 days on police bail. The media, and then particularly the more tabloid-esque publications,
they can be brutal.
They went wild. Wild. I mean, they were everywhere he was. And Jeffries at the time...
That was an accident. Oh my God damn it.
Tori, shut the fuck up.
But it's my week.
I know.
So Jeffries did have an eccentric look about him. He kind of looks like Doc Brown from Back to the Future.
His hair looks exactly like that.
So if you look up Christopher Jeffries, and for you guys, of course, when this airs, we'll have pictures posted.
Yeah.
And I mean, they just really vilified him in the press. I mean, they were basically saying that he was guilty. I mean, it was bad. Also, within the police department, some things were leaked that by law they weren't allowed to get out there. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. But Crime Stoppers offered a £10,000 reward, and the Sun newspaper offered a £50,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of the murderer. Women were advised not to walk alone after dark, and people living in the area were advised to make sure that their homes were secure. So neighbors, Vincent and Tanya, we talked about earlier, they had left Bristol shortly after being questioned to spend Christmas with Tanya's parents. And then they were going to Amsterdam to visit Vincent's family for New Year's. So while Vincent is in Amsterdam, he's watching this coverage because it's all over Europe. This is a huge story. And so Vincent calls the police station just 3 hours after Jeffrey's arrest to report that he had remembered that at one point on the day that Joe went missing, that Jeffrey's car was parked one way, but later that evening he had seen it parked another way. So indicating that Jeffrey's must have moved at some point. He had been out with his car.
Left. Yeah.
So police immediately send a team to Amsterdam to question Vincent for further details. But then when they do, while their suspicions are raised, they're raised against him, not Jeffrey's, because he seemed to be vague on some areas and then super curious, particularly about the forensics that they'd found, what they'd found, where they'd found it. I don't know, like some parts were weirdly detailed, and he was changing his story. So when he was initially interviewed, he had said he had been home all night, with the exception to go pick up Tanya from her work party at 2 a.m. But then he told police, well, actually, he had gone out twice that evening. He went out once to take pictures of the snow, and I will that night. But okay, so in his defense, so Bristol is a seaport town. It's kind of like Seattle, right? So like they get snow, but you don't get
have seals.
No, but you know what they do have is fucking seagulls that start their fucking squawing at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the goddamn, like I hate seagulls now because we lived close to you would just hear them at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's not pretty sound when there are
when you're
like
hungover and you just fell down the street.
Or, yeah, exactly. when you multiple times fell down.
Pants wet.
When we go fishing, the seagulls eat our bait and will sometimes catch themselves on a fish hook, which is a traumatic experience.
Oh, God.
And then when you're reeling in a salmon, seals will come up and just take the fucking salmon and just eat it whole.
I mean,
just come up right next to the boat while you're reeling it in. They're just like, boop.
Oh, I would just let them have it. Here you go. I love seals.
They just bob their little heads in the bay.
That's so cute.
I love them. I think they're great. All right, pause this because I gotta pee. And so this will be our next break.
Boopity-bop-bop. I don't remember what it was.
So back from our break.
Boop-bop-beat-up-bop.
Okay. So Tabak had told police that he had actually left twice that night. First time to go out and try to take some pictures of the snow, which I'm like, okay, in his defense, Bristol is a port town like Seattle. They don't get a lot of snow. It snowed right around Christmas when I was living there, and we all went outside and we're like, oh my God, it's snowing, and like had our cameras and we're taking pictures, so I'm like,
I'll allow
okay, maybe. Right, but like, still,
that's the weirdest
kind of a
fucking
weird
thing to be like. This is what I was doing.
The other thing he said that he did was that he had gone to Asda. So I told you that's kind of like
store.
The British Walmart.
Yes.
Okay. Now look,
British Walmart.
Oh boy. Again, that was Emily, not me. Don't come at me. Anybody that lives in the UK or Northern Ireland, if one of our Irish listeners would please send an email to
What's
Lindsey.
like an Irish name?
Seamus?
Okay, Seamus and his 11 friends, you need to reach out to us because we know you're there. It's because there's 12 of you.
Yeah.
And
it was like 1 and then 3.
The first one was Seamus.
Yeah, Seamus, and then there were 3.
One consistent, and then
and so we feel like that person might have just told all their friends.
So Seamus, tell us your real name.
But really, any of you, please send Lindsey an email.
Oh God, please.
At threesacrime@gmail.com.
She is dying.
It's so stupid.
She will be super happy. And I'm going to put this plea out again. That if anybody knows Ash and Elaine at Morbid, if one of you guys could please acknowledge that Emily exists.
Yes.
On any level, Lindsey and I would be really grateful. Okay, so the Asda part just like it's super weird. So, and one of the things that I want to mention is that he goes into Asda, he walks in, and he doesn't buy anything, he just walks out. Then he walks in again, and he buys chips, beer, and rock salt. Okay, so those are the 3 things. So those are the 3 things that he buys. And while he's at Asda, he texts Tanya and says, hey, I'm at Asda. I'm bored. Like, I miss you. Okay?
Good Lord.
So this is while she's out partying with her work friends for, like, their holiday party.
That's weird.
Like, he does this weird check-in. Now, the thing that, like, it's not uncommon that somebody might run to the store, buy beer, chips, rock salt, it's snowing. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, So remember when we talked about how the Bristol Ram was like a 30-minute walk home, right? Now he's in a car, but so where I lived was 4 minutes from the Bristol Ram. So where I lived would be 30 minutes from where they lived. And Asda was more towards city center. So when I lived there, Sophie and I would walk. I mean, it was a bit of a hike. We would walk to Asda and then we would buy groceries and stuff and do all that stuff for the flat because we would just split everything. And then we would actually get a taxi
To
back
bring the groceries.
because it was like way too
That makes
much
sense.
to try to even, because like, that's how far of a walk it was that we were like, there's no way we're walking back with this stuff. Also, a side note, that Asda, I remember once we bought this this humongous bag.
Big.
Oh my god, I've lived here too long.
A big old bag.
Big old bag.
We bought this big old bag of penne pasta and it was 1 pound. And my friend Andrea, who is Italian, used to come over and cook for us. And he was just like, what the fuck is this? And I were like, it's our like big bag of penne. And he was like, that's not pasta. Because we were so excited. We're like, look, we got this huge giant bag. Like, this will feed all of us for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He was so horrified. But anyway, I mean, it was probably a 20 to 30 minute walk for us from there. So even though he's driving a car, like, it raised suspicions because there were so many other places he could have gone in between to pick up those items. Like, he didn't need to drive all the way to Asda. Like,
just to get those 3 things.
Right, to get those 3 things. The other thing is, like, so all of these people are like engineers, right? And so the type of work that he did was in like how you would set up like a mall or how you would set up a store like that. So like this guy knew exactly where all the cameras were and made sure that he got seen on every single one of those cameras.
Okay.
So before finishing that questioning in Amsterdam, police had asked him if he would provide a DNA sample. He was initially hesitant to do so, but he did eventually comply, but only with the caveat of them understanding that, well, he'd been in Joe's flat before, so like his DNA might be there.
Oh my fucking god.
But previously he'd said, I don't even know her. They've only been here a month and a half, you know? Or I was gone one of the months that they lived here. Up until he had made this phone call, he wasn't even on their fucking radar. But now they're like...
He inserted himself in this.
He's inserted himself in this. So it's like, okay, well, that's weird. And the whole thing with the DNA and like, well, no, I've been in her apartment, but you just said you didn't know her. Like, their suspicions were raised.
Yeah.
They're suspicious.
Hashtag Bailey Sari.
That's right. So on January 18th, so now this is almost a full month, the BBC TV show Crime Watch, and this show is actually on YouTube if you want to watch it.
I was going to say, I think I've seen one.
They filmed a reenactment of Joanna's last movements in Bristol. So they actually went to Bristol to film on location. And within 24 hours, just of the news coverage that they were coming to film, over 300 people had contacted the police with anonymous tips. And one tip was called in from a female after seeing Joe's parents on Crime Watch. And so on January 20th, police arrested Vincent Tabak. The police were really careful not to release much information because of the fallout that had happened after they arrested Jeffries. And at this point, Jeffries isn't really a suspect, but it wasn't until March 4th of 2011 that he was officially released from police bail, and they stated that he was no longer a suspect.
Jesus Christ.
So in January, mid to late January, they're like, yeah, he's not really a suspect, but they didn't officially clear him until March, which is just kind of crazy to me. They had checked. So one of the things that they had found, and I think I got distracted and didn't say this before, but when they found Joanna's body and they had done the autopsy, they did find DNA on her that was not hers. They had checked Jeffrey's DNA and it wasn't a match. So they knew at that point like he didn't do it. He was not a match to DNA found on her body. It did, however, match Vincent.
But boo!
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
I mean, The DNA that they tested had a probability of it being it was a 1 in a billion chance that it wasn't his DNA. There's a 1 in a billion chance this isn't you. Like, this is so you.
Yeah.
That it's you. That it's you. Yeah. They informed Vincent that DNA linked him to Joanna's body and that he was being charged with murder. But at this point, he was still denying he didn't have anything to do with it. Once arrested, police seized Vincent's car, his mobile or cell phone, and his computer. Investigators found that in the months leading up to Joe's murder, that Vincent had used his computer to search for escort services during business trips in the US and the UK, that he had contacted several sex workers by phone, and had a lot of violent porn, which was like videos of women being choked, bound, gagged, and so on. So police also found in the images a woman who looked alarmingly similar to Joe. Like, it wasn't Joe, but it was like a porn video. But somebody that
looked similar.
Just looked a lot like her, pulling up her pink top to expose her breasts and her bra, which Joe was found in a pink sweater with her top pulled up that way. And police had not released that fact. They also found that he had been going to Google Street View and watching Longwood Lane. And not just Longwood Lane, but like the actual area where her body had been found.
Emily's face is great.
He had also searched Clifton Refuse Pickup, like, so how often they were coming to pick up trash, and the legal definition difference between manslaughter and murder.
Wow. He Googled that?
Like, what is the difference between manslaughter and murder?
Our murderers so fucking stupid half the time.
I mean,
you guys, like, serious.
Don't Google.
Don't be such
And
a
if you delete idiot. Your cookie, it's still there.
They can still get, like, everything.
Your parents threatened you with it when you were a teenager, and it's still true as an adult.
Like, go up to your biggest enemy, ask them if you can borrow their phone.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Don't actually do that.
You gotta be careful what you put in writing, man.
Anyway. And I mean, we say that knowing that our Google searches are fucked. Like, we're dead. Like,
satanic panic. We got murders. We got.
If one of us dies, it's not gonna look good for the other two. All right, so
3's in jail.
Do you think they'll let us podcast?
Hey, they let Duncan fucking write on his stupid ass blog, so maybe.
That's true.
Dude, that's
gross. So Vincent continued to deny that he had killed Joe all this time, and he kept trying to blame "quote unquote" corrupt police. But once he was arrested, he just refused to answer any questions for investigators. Also, I want to sidebar, and not that I'm encouraging anyone to commit a crime. This is specifically for people who have not committed a crime. But if you are ever arrested from working for an attorney and
always
having a sister-in-law, first thing you do.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
You ask for a lawyer.
I don't care if you're innocent.
Doesn't matter. Do not say
always ask for a lawyer.
anything.
Always.
The only thing that you say is
I want a lawyer.
There is a guy on YouTube who's a law professor, and he talks really, 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 really super fast. But it's fascinating. And if I can find it, I'll link it to our Facebook page. But he actually talks about how, like, things that you say that can be, at least in your mind, completely innocuous, how they can twist it and, like, you end up in prison for something you didn't do, which is, like, this morning, I had watched a 2020 where this kid literally gave a false confession and spent 22 years in prison and ended up being exonerated because the mother of the actual murder victim was fighting for him because she knew he hadn't done it.
The other thing I was going to say along with getting a lawyer is don't ever take a polygraph.
No, that's they can't even fucking use it.
If you are a family member of someone who something has happened to and you're talking to investigators, Like, I would push, like, I want them to have a polygraph, but, like, I won't take a polygraph.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, like, if someone killed you guys, I'd be like, make them take a polygraph.
Right.
Yeah.
They'd be like, will you take one? I'd be like, no.
No.
I'm not going to take one, but I want them to.
And it's so, it's hard because, again, I don't want to sound like I am encouraging people to not cooperate with investigators, but if you ever are
You need
innocent
to protect
and find
your
You
rights
just hope
and yourself
you
first.
gotta,
Yeah.
like, I know we want to believe that everyone has our best interest, but, like, only you have your best
Right.
interest.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So to use all the help
yeah.
you can.
My
Yeah.
sister-in-law is actually like an attorney for the government. So she is a
Oh, wow.
prosecutor, and she's the one that was like, lawyer.
Always.
Only word you know.
Always.
Only word you know.
Always.
Lawyer. Oh, she also told me never to submit to a breathalyzer. To let them take you in and draw your blood.
Really?
Yep.
Can they, like, fuck?
So
Can it be
I
You
think
can
like
say
a-
no to a breathalyzer.
you can say no to a breathalyzer, and I think it's like an immediate suspension of your license for a particular period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And they can take you in and force you to get a blood test, but the time it takes to do that.
You have rights, people. If a police
Yeah.
officer ever asks if they can check your car, you're allowed to say no.
Well, and
Because you have to have a warrant.
I want to make it
Or probable
really,
cause.
Or probably,
Yes.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
If you have like a fucking machete in the passenger seat covered in blood and a body in the back seat, they're probably going to want to search it and you're not going to have a choice. But
Yeah.
If they don't have exigent circumstances, they can't just go rifling through your car.
No.
You can sit there and make them wait for a warrant, and in that meantime, call your fucking lawyer. Call any lawyer. 411 it. I don't care.
if you're being pulled over and you're driving like on a back road or somewhere where you don't feel safe, it's totally legal to like call the police department and
tell them.
read the license
see,
plate number
I
and make
have
sure that it's an
heard-
actual police officer.
I've heard varying things about that, but yeah. I mean, look, whether or not
I don't
whether
care.
or not it's legal, I'm not pulling over on the side of the road. Like
No.
several people, and wasn't Kemper one that pretended to be a police
Yeah.
officer to pull women over?
Yeah.
So
He was
like,
BFFs with a lot of them.
No.
If I am not
no.
like on the freeway where like if I'm ever by myself, I'm
Yeah.
not
No.
Yeah.
I will find a Walmart and pull into a gas station or
Right,
like
yeah,
into the
some-
parking
yeah.
lot, but I will not
Yeah. No.
Nope.
And I will crack my window, but I'm no, sir, I'm not rolling it all the way down for you. And it's funny because I listen back to our episodes and I'm like, man, I sound like I'm like really anti-law enforcement. And I'm not.
No.
I absolutely am not. These guys risk their lives for us on
But
a
you got to
daily
protect
basis.
yourselves from the bad ones.
You do.
It's
Yeah.
like
And
and
that's
you
the
don't
thing,
know what
just-
you're going
And
to come
from
across.
people pretending
to be
because
that.
That's a real thing.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's such
And-
a real issue that.
Yeah. And so, you know,
And we're
just,
women again. We
Yeah.
have to be more cautious than.
But yeah, so anyway, again, way off topic. Okay.
Ask
So,
for a lawyer. Say no
ask
to
for a
polygraph.
lawyer. His family was convinced that he was innocent. And frankly, since Jeffries had been arrested and then cleared, there was doubt to whether the police had yet again arrested another innocent man.
Yeah.
And one of the people who really doubted his guilt was Christopher Jeffries, who all he knew of Vincent was that he was a good tenant, he was quiet, not any problems with him. And, he's got that feeling of like, well, I was innocent and they arrested me. And really thought that there was a chance that Vincent, was actually innocent and that this horrible nightmare was happening again. Now, people that knew Vincent from Amsterdam, like from
Mhm.
growing up, described him as being a loner, weird kid,
Oh,
you
God.
know, like your typical engineer,
Mhm.
where they're so
just a little
smart.
nerdy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
but then in the UK, like his coworkers found him to be very affable and friendly, and
He knew
sometimes
him,
even
just like the Eastern guy.
at one point, before we got into this point, but back during the investigation, Joe's parents and Joe's parents and Greg had actually gone to Vincent and Tanya's flat to talk with them. And Joe's mom talks about how Tanya, like, who, by the way, obviously didn't know that her boyfriend
Yeah.
was a murderer,
Poor woman.
was, I guess, like, really super helpful. It was just like, very empathetic and just like, what can we do to help? Like,
Good-
can we put up
yeah.
flares? What can we do? And Vincent was like very pulled back,
Reserved.
not personable, not talking, not saying much of anything. And she just kind of got a creeper vibe. Eventually, Vincent confessed to a prison chaplain and told him that he was going to plead guilty, which he did, but he pled guilty to manslaughter, which is,
very different.
Yeah, manslaughter is basically saying, well, yeah, I killed this person, but it was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but this plea was rejected by the Crown Prosecution Service as they were convinced that this was murder and not manslaughter. So the trial began on October 4th, 2011, so almost a year. The prosecution's theory was that Vincent had strangled Jo shortly after she arrived home using sufficient force to kill her. They believed he used his height, he was 6'4", to overpower her and pin her to the floor by her wrists. The prosecutor told the jury that Jo had 43 separate injuries to her head, neck, torso, and arms, which were injured during, like, they had a struggle. Like, the apartment didn't show a struggle, but they had struggled. She had cuts, bruises, a fractured nose, and he stated that her death would have been slow and painful. After killing her, he loaded her up into the boot of his car and went to find a place to dump the body. He thought that stopping at Asda with Jo in the trunk of his car would establish an alibi for him. And then he didn't even use it when he was actually questioned, which I think is super weird. Yeah, he has not. One thing to note is that the jury never got the opportunity to hear about the violent porn or the solicitation of sex workers, as it was deemed inadmissible. The jury went into deliberations on October 26th and deliberated for 14 hours. On October 28th, the jury came back with a guilty verdict for murder, and he was sentenced to life plus 20 years. So the UK prison system is like a little weird because it says life plus 20 years, but basically that means that he has to serve at least 20, and then he's eligible, I think, to apply for parole, but he could be in there up to life.
Okay.
And if I got that wrong, UK listeners, let me know. But that's what my understanding. What is crazy is just like he thought he was so smart that he was gonna frame Christopher Jeffries.
Oh.
But it was really that call that made investigators look at him because he was completely unclear. Nobody was looking at him before that.
He could have gotten.
I mean, maybe the police would have made their way back to him eventually, but I mean, certainly not as fast as they did. And he thought he was creating this alibi by going to Asda, but the fact that he had changed his story, failed to mention it, was just another huge red flag to investigators.
Yep.
During the investigation, police also found 145 child porn images, to which he pled guilty to and received 10 months to be served concurrently with his prison sentence. So essentially, he got no additional. No
10 fucking months?
10 fucking months to be run concurrently with his existing sentence.
Counts, so it's nothing extra. Yeah.
Zero. Nothing.
What is the point of that?
I have no idea.
That's the dumbest thing.
So one other thing that I wanted to mention was about Christopher Jeffries and the tabloids. So Jeffries actually ended up testifying before an inquiry set up by then Prime Minister David Cameron, where he said, "It was clear the tabloid press had decided I was guilty of Miss Yeates' murder and seemed to persuade the public of my guilt. They embarked on a frenzied campaign to blacken my character by publishing a series of very serious allegations about me, which were completely untrue." In 2011, 8 different newspapers had to make public apologies and pay damages upwards of 6 figures to Christopher Jeffries for the libelous claims they had made. This included The Sun, Daily Mirror, Sunday Mirror, Daily Record, Daily Star, The Scotsman, and the Daily Express. So, like, these are tabloid-esque, but they're also, like, newspapers that people read. Do you know what I mean? In 2013, reportedly with the approval and sign-off of Jeffries, ITV commissioned a TV drama called The Lost Honor of Christopher Jeffries about the ordeal he went through. It won 2 British Academy Television Awards in 2015.
Wow.
So that is the tragic story of the death of Joanna Yeates and the slandering of Christopher Jeffries. And I just, I hope Tebek is in jail for life, because some of the things that I read were just like this. Like, if he had not been caught that quickly, that like he probably would have
did he
done
do
it
it
again. Oh my God! Holy shit! I missed that whole part.
Seriously?
But,
why his motive?
Why he did it?
Why?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, I don't know where that section went. It's like gone. His motive for so his story was that he was walking. Well, he said that they had all talked in the hall or met before, and that Joanna had flirted with him.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Yeah, and he said on that night that he was walking outside, and she saw him through her kitchen window and waved. Now, I watched his parents talk about this because they were there obviously when he was testifying. And like they even said when the prosecution asked, like, well, how did she wave? He said she waved like if you were saying, oh, hey, hi, nice to see you, not like, hey. But he was saying that she like waved at him for him to come in. Now, I was listening to another podcast. I listened to a couple podcasts about this actually. And I'm so sorry, I don't remember which podcast it was, but they had what I thought was a great theory about how maybe he, like the cat, if the cat had been outside, maybe he came to the door with the cat. Like, oh, because if somebody came to my door with my
one
dog,
of your dogs.
I would open the door.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a theory. That's not, proven, but whatever. He said he went to the door. She let him in. They were in the kitchen, just kind of talking. He says that she made a flirtatious comment. And so he tried to kiss her, and she didn't like that he had made a pass at her. And so she started screaming. Yeah. And then he said he put his hand over her mouth, and then after a couple of seconds took it off, but she started screaming again, which is then where he put his hands around her throat. And so he didn't mean to kill her. He was just trying to quiet her.
That's his manslaughter.
That was his way of saying
his girlfriend for 3 years and they were going to get married.
Mm-hmm. I know. Like, yeah. And then like you find out that not only is your boyfriend or your fiance, who you were going to marry and spend the rest of your life with, is not only a murderer, but also like a child pornographer. Like, that's a lot. I feel for her, and like I really do feel for her. I can't imagine what that's like. But at the same time, girl, thank God you didn't marry him.
Yeah.
But Joe's parents, I mean, just the sweetest people. I'm so glad that they like got her back. And there was a garden that she had planted like kind of as part of her job, and it's still like being taken care of in her honor. She was a landscape architect.
Right. Oh yeah.
And so that was really nice. And I will say that this case, there were a lot of details that I left out. This is just a high level overview. They did a lot of stuff with DNA. They did a lot of stuff with just different routes of, it was like different routes of inquiry that they went down, but they weren't necessarily related to the outcome of the case. So I cut those out. But if you are interested in those additional details, they are out there, and it really goes into the nitty gritty of the different things that they did, because this was the largest police undertaking in Bristol's, like one of the largest in their history. The lost honor of Christopher Jeffries.
Honour.
Yes. Spelled the British way.
The British, we are British.
British.
That's
hello, mate.
Hello.
I'm British. We need some fish and chips.
Hello, governor.
Hello, governor. I'm
She's
horrified
like
for
my
real
white
Americans
Americans.
Right now. It's funny.
We're from America.
When I lived in England, so I have been a huge Beatles fan since I was like 6 or 7, and so of course I'm going to go to Liverpool while I'm in England.
Well, yeah.
But Sophie made me take the Magical Mystery Tour, and I was like, oh my God, is this going to be like a bus? And like, as soon as they get on there, and like, it was a bus. It was the first song they played when we got on it. You know, it was awesome because they took us to Penny Lane. They took us to Strawberry Hill and took us to Paul McCartney's house, where a guy came out and was talking to us, and we all thought he looked like Paul McCartney. And we're like, oh my God, it's got to be a brother. And he was just the caretaker. But he talked to us for a really long time. But we were walking, Sophie and I were walking on the Albert Docks, and this lady was going by, and she's like, oh my God, like, we're gonna go here. And I mean, she's just like super loud. And so I looked at Sophie, my flatmate, who was from Manchester, and I said, oh my God, do I sound like that? And she looked at me and she went, not anymore.
I think you told us
You
that.
did.
Oh my
Not
God.
anymore.
Not
And I'm
anymore.
like, so that's the story. That's the story of Joanna Yeates. Took
That's
place in
fucked
Bummer.
Bristol,
up,
England.
and I'm
It's one of
sad
my favorite places in the world.
Bummer.
that the killer has crazy kind of cool eyebrows and he doesn't deserve them.
I
He
think
doesn't
he's-
know how to handle those.
Yeah, I think he's super creepster.
Well,
Well, come listen to us then, June. We got more on Wednesdays.
It's Warren Wednesdays.
And we're gonna find out
Yeah.
they want the money too much,
Mm-hmm.
or I think they're both. I don't know. There's
were
good and
they-
bad with them.
Were they legit?
Yeah.
Were they scammers? You know,
Be
the
back
pioneers.
next week to find out.
Well, next week we got
The week after next week.
Find out. In 3
No.
weeks.
In
Find out.
3 weeks. Fuck. Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
you get the teaser the week
Yeah.
after. next.
Yes. Yeah.
We're working real hard.
Yeah, we are. Anyway,
Alright,
It was
love you
good.
guys.
Love you guys.
Remember
Thank
who you are and
you.
what you represent.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. We put out new episodes every single Wednesday, and if you're impatient like me, be sure to become a Patreon where you can get your episodes early each week. For as little as $5 a month, you not only significantly support the production of this podcast, but you'll also get ad-free episodes in addition to them being early. For pictures, videos, and links related to this episode, be sure to check out our Instagram at threesacrime. And for more information, go to threesacrime.com.